Connecting Universal Design for Learning with Culturally Responsive Teaching. Laura Kieran and Christine Anderson. To discuss this policy article, first we must discuss both universal design for learning and culturally responsive teaching as separate entities. Mayer, Rose, and Gordon 2014 state, the UDL guidelines developed by CAST are grounded in research on cognition and learning. According to Rayo et al. 2020, UDL focuses on designing environments that reduce barriers and increases access to instructional experiences for all, enabling students to become expert learners. An essential premise of UDL is that barriers in the learning environment can be reduced by A. Proactively and intentionally designing instruction that provides flexible pathways, and B. Integrating supports and strategies that support all learners. UDL provides a framework for addressing learner variability from the outset when designing educational environments and experiences. The UDL framework presents three principles that guide the development of curriculum and instruction, which are engagement, representation, and action and expression. As instructional design framework, the UDL guidelines can be applied in various ways and at different levels. For example, UDL can be applied to educational environments and school-wide practices, to curriculum and instruction, and to digital tools and online environments that are used in the classroom. The National Center on UDL 2013 described UDL as a blueprint for creating instructional goals, methods, materials, and assessments that work for everyone, not a single one-size-fits-all solution, but rather flexible approaches that can be customized and adjusted for individual needs. Teal and Obida 2008 describes CRT as creating learning communities where cultural heritages are valued by using cultural knowledge of the diverse communities to guide curriculum development and to challenge the status quo. Furthermore, Tenay's 2020 defines culturally responsive teaching as understanding the relationship between students' culture and students' learning. Two pedagogical frameworks designed to address student differences are UDL and CRT. Both consider ways in which traditional instruction approaches result in barriers to learning for non-traditional students. In the policy article, Connecting Universal Design for Learning with Culturally Responsive Teaching, Kieran and Anderson believe that using UDL principles alone is not enough. In fact, Kieran and Anderson 2018 state, using UDL principles without explicitly considering how cultural differences and perspectives affect learning may increase the disparity in student achievement for students of color. Likewise, the same applies to the effect of socioeconomic status or language development on students' preparation for learning in a typical school environment. Kieran and Anderson 2018 explain, culturally responsive pedagogies prompt educators to design instructions from the perspective of students' diversity as strengths rather than deficits. Every individual background and experiences shape the learner. We as educators must consider how students' diverse backgrounds and cultural differences affect learning. We must align pedagogies that effectively address these differences. As educators, we must be aware of our own hidden biases in order to deliver and connect a culturally responsive curriculum with the universal design for learning. Without recognizing our own stereotypes, we can pose a threat to our students' learning. I was fortunate enough to attend Dr. Shiraki Holly's 3-day professional development session as a member of the Cape Breton Victoria Regional Center of Education Culturally Responsive Pedagogy lead team. Dr. Holly made me aware that we all have hidden biases and stereotypes, and this is all right. but what is not all right is for us to ignore these hidden biases and pretend they do not exist. To grow as culturally responsive individuals and educators, we must continue to remind ourselves that it is not our first thought that it is important, it is our last thought. UDL and CRT overlap in many ways and many areas. For example, Hammond 2015 states, following guidelines in the multiple means of engagement, teachers reduce threats and distractions from the learning environment. Regardless of race, culture, or language, individuals' brains are hardwired to avoid threats to safety at all costs. UDL principles such as multiple means of representation that provide options for perception, language, symbols, and comprehension is explicitly connected to culturally responsive teaching pedagogies, such as visual, auditory, and multimedia representations to reduce barriers to print, reshaping the curriculum to include resources with multiple perspectives throughout the year, cross-cultural conversations that challenge the dominant perspective and diversity in the classroom, and the community is viewed as a strength and a resource to extend understandings of historical and social perspectives. UDL principles such as multiple means of action and expression that provide options for physical action, expressive skills, fluency, and executive functions is explicitly connected to culturally responsive teaching pedagogies such as honoring different methods of students, sharing knowledge using storytelling, family, histories, biographies, chronicles, and other narratives, placing value on experiential knowledge and traditions, providing opportunities for collaboration and reciprocal teaching, and using metacognitive strategies to change students' negative thought processes when they encounter learning challenges. Lastly, UDL principles such as multiple means of engagement that provide options for recruiting interest, sustaining effort, persistence, and self-regulation is explicitly connected to culturally responsive teaching pedagogies, such as designing assignments that allow students to construct knowledge and make meaning of their world, allowing choice on assignments and topics to increase personal relevance, promoting the use of cultural capital from within the community for mentoring and learning, promoting active citizenship locally and globally for authentic problem solving while promoting social justice, and promoting an environment of mutual respect among students and between students and teachers. Kieran and Anderson 2018 state, when planned proactively, UDL with CRT combining as part of the blueprint for increasing student success in meeting teachers' high expectations for intended learning outcomes. Such enhancements to the traditional UDL framework assist teachers in urban settings with more explicit, proactive planning for every student. Listed are the various references I used during my research. Culturally responsive teaching means reflecting and being willing to listen and change in order to respond positively and constructively. Zariat Hammond. I invite you to visit the following link to a 3-minute video that discusses culturally responsive teaching, and then brainstorm things you are currently or wish to do to be a more culturally responsive educator.